You need to find another place to live, Ruth. We need the space. That's what Megan told me, standing at the kitchen counter with one hand on her phone and the other on her belly. She didn't even look up when she said it. No hesitation, no guilt. Just cold words floating in the air like smoke. I turned to my son, Eric, hoping for some pushback, a hint of discomfort, some trace of the boy I raised with every ounce of strength I had. But no. He nodded. She's right, Mom, he said. We've got a lot going on. It's just not working anymore. Just not working. I'd been living in their finished basement for 6 months, paying rent, making meals, folding laundry, fixing light fixtures, and walking the dog when they got busy. I never asked for anything. I stayed out of their way. I was quiet, invisible even. Before all this, I had a perfectly good house, small but cozy, a place that was mine. But when Eric and Megan found their dream home in Everdale and needed help with the down payment, I stepped in. I sold my house, gave them the money, moved into their basement because that was the temporary plan. Their words, not mine. It's your home too, Mom, Eric had said at the time. We're family. This is just until we settle in. Now Megan was pregnant, and suddenly I was an obstacle, an inconvenience, a name on the Wi-Fi and a body in the way. I tried to stay calm. Where am I supposed to go? Megan shrugged, still not looking up. There are senior places around. They have activities and stuff. You might even like it. Eric chimed in, a little too cheerfully. We'll help you move, of course. It's not like we're tossing you out tomorrow. I felt the floor shift beneath me, not literally, but it might as well have. I looked around the kitchen, my kitchen. I'd picked out that backsplash. I'd painted the cabinets myself. I'd stood right here every morning making breakfast while they slept in, but none of that mattered now. All right, I said, keeping my voice level. I'll be out by the weekend. Megan's eyes finally flicked up. Really? Eric looked stunned. You don't have to rush. No, I said, cutting him off. I'll be out. They thought they won. They thought I'd cry, argue, beg for one more month. But they didn't know me nearly as well as they thought. I went downstairs, sat on the edge of my narrow bed, and stared at the wall, not out of sadness, but calculation. I'd known this was coming. Ever since Megan started slamming doors louder, since Eric started talking to me like a guest instead of his mother, I knew. I just hoped I was wrong, but I wasn't. So I'd prepared. 2 weeks ago, I toured a one-bedroom apartment in the center of Everdale. It wasn't big, but it had light. Windows that opened, floors that didn't creak, a kitchen that would never hear Megan's voice. I'd put in an application, quietly, just in case. I called the manager that evening. I'll take it, I said. I'll sign the lease tomorrow. 3 days later, I stood at the curb while movers loaded up the few things I'd brought into their house. My house, my money, my effort. All of it now behind me. Eric came outside, holding a cup of coffee like this was a normal Tuesday. You really found a place that fast? He asked. I don't waste time, I said, watching a box marked cookware disappear into the truck. Especially when people make their feelings clear. He looked uncomfortable. Good. He should be. I moved into my new apartment that afternoon. The manager handed me the keys with a smile. Welcome home, Miss Campbell home. The word felt different now. That night, I unpacked one box. Just one. My books. I set them on the shelf above the radiator. Jane Austen, a few old cookbooks, a photo of my mother. I poured myself a cup of tea and sat by the window, staring out at the city lights. Then my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered. Ms. Ruth Campbell? Yes. This is Lawrence Whitaker from Havenbrook Properties. We reviewed your application. Your references were excellent. We'd love to bring you on as a property consultant. You'd assist our acquisition team in evaluating residential properties for development. My heart thudded. Of course. I'd be happy to. He sounded pleased. We'd like to start you on a trial project. Property at 17 Hawthorne Lane. Does that address ring a bell? I nearly dropped my tea. That was Eric and Megan's house. Very familiar, I said calmly. What's the timeline? We'd like an initial evaluation by next week. There are some concerns about unpermitted modifications. I stared out the window, the tea forgotten in my hand. I remembered helping Eric finish the garage conversion. I remembered his buddy installing drywall on a Saturday with no inspector in sight. I remembered Megan saying, "No one checks those things anymore." They were wrong, and now it was going to cost them. The next day, I met Mr. Whitaker for coffee. Mid-40s, press suit, confident. He pulled up the property records on his tablet and pointed to the garage. "Is it true they've converted this into a living space?" I nodded. "Yes. But I doubt there were permits." He raised an eyebrow. "Interesting." He was polite, professional, but I could see the calculation in his eyes. He saw the opportunity. "What's your relationship to the current owners?" he asked. I smiled. "Let's just say," I replied, "they used to call me Mom." I walked through the doors of Havenbrook Properties 2 days later, dressed in a navy blazer and black slacks. I hadn't worn anything but jeans in years, but I wanted to feel sharp, capable, like the woman I used to be before I let anyone treat me like furniture in their house. Mr. Whitaker greeted me with a firm handshake. "Ms. Campbell, glad you're here." He led me into a glass-walled conference room where 3 other consultants sat, flipping through folders. They all nodded politely. One, a woman named Janine, smiled as if to say she'd already heard something about me. Lawrence laid out the project plan. "We're targeting 5 properties in this block. Hawthorne Lane is key. We want to redevelop the area. Modern duplexes, better infrastructure, fiber optics, the works." He handed me a tablet. Eric and Megan's house appeared on screen, with notes scribbled in red. Unpermitted garage, structural concerns, high potential ROI. I clicked through to the next file. Photos I had taken myself when we converted the garage. I'd kept everything. Outlets, joists, even a note I'd scribbled about the insulation thickness. I never thought those details would matter. Now they were leverage. "We'd like to make a cash offer," Lawrence said. Quick close. "Do you think they'd consider it?" I shrugged. "Depends how desperate they are." Janine chuckled. "Aren't we all?" By noon we were in his car, driving down Hawthorne Lane. As we pulled up to 17, I saw Megan's SUV in the driveway and Eric's truck parked crookedly near the curb. There was still a scratch on the garage door I told him to fix 2 months ago. Lawrence handed me a clipboard. "Ready?" More than ever. We approached the house. Megan peeked out the window, then disappeared. Eric opened the door, eyes narrowing the second he saw me. "Mom?" I smiled sweetly. "Hello, Eric." Lawrence extended his hand. "Lawrence Whitaker, Havenbrook Properties." "This is my consultant, Ruth Campbell." Eric's face shifted, confusion, suspicion, then understanding. Megan appeared behind him, arms crossed over her belly. "What's this about?" Lawrence kept it professional. "We're evaluating several properties for a redevelopment project. Yours is of particular interest. May we come in?" Eric stepped back slowly. "Sure." The air inside felt tense, familiar, like a room where people smile but mean none of it. We sat in the living room. On the couch I helped pick out. Beside a coffee table I assembled myself. Lawrence laid out the paperwork. "We're prepared to offer $485,000 for the property. Cash. 30-day close." Megan's mouth dropped open. "We paid $410,000. Eric looked cautious. "We're not selling?" "Of course," Lawrence said. "But you should know. We've already secured approval for infrastructure upgrades. Roads, utilities, broadband. It'll be loud, invasive, months of work." He leaned forward. "And any unpermitted structures could delay the process. The city has a policy of investigating neighboring properties once major permits are pulled." I watched the color drain from Megan's face. Lawrence glanced at me. "You said the garage was a recent project?" "Yes," I said calmly. "About 6 months ago. I helped with the flooring myself." Eric swallowed hard. Megan forced a smile. "We'll think about it." "Of course," Lawrence said, standing. "We'll hold the offer until Friday." He handed them a card. "Ruth can answer any questions in the meantime." Outside, the breeze felt sharper. Lawrence looked at me. "That went well." I nodded. They'll call. And they did. The first message came that evening. Mom, can we talk? I let it go to voicemail. The next day, another. Megan this time. Ruth, we didn't mean to make you feel... Delete. By Thursday, there were 3 more. 1 from Eric, 2 from a number I didn't recognize but knew was hers. That night, I sat by the window of my apartment, tea in hand. I could hear traffic below. I'd never felt so calm. At 9:03 p.m., Eric called again. I answered. Mom, what's going on? Why are you working with that guy? You asked me to move out, Eric. I moved out. I found work. I'm doing well. But our house, he's trying to buy it. Why would you help him? I paused, choosing my words carefully. I didn't help him because of what you did, I said. I helped him because I know this neighborhood. I know the houses. And I know where the weaknesses are. That sounds vindictive. No, it's strategic. He didn't speak. I could hear his breathing, fast, uneven. Do you think this is fair? He finally asked. I almost laughed. Fair? I repeated. You took my money, my home, my time. And when Megan got uncomfortable, you threw me out. Now you're asking about fair? Things were stressful, he mumbled. So you made a choice. I'm making mine. Megan called the next morning. Her voice was thin. I'm worried, she said. What's going to happen to us? That depends on whether you tell the truth when the city comes around. Ruth, don't. You don't get to play victim. Click. Friday came. No answer, no message, just silence. At 4:42 p.m., Lawrence called. They countered, he said. Asked for $520,000. I smiled. Give it to them, I said. Let them go buy something smaller. Somewhere else. He laughed. You're full of surprises. You have no idea. That night, I poured a glass of wine and turned off my phone. I sat in my living room, my books on the shelf, my chair near the window, and thought about all the meals I made in that other house, all the nights I stayed up when they were sick, all the holidays I funded when money was tight, gone, but not wasted. Because now, I knew what I was capable of. I was done being underestimated. Monday morning, the paperwork was signed. The house at 17 Hawthorne Lane was officially under Haven Brooks' control. Eric and Megan moved out by the following Saturday. I didn't see them pack. I didn't drive by. I didn't ask where they were going. But I imagined Megan fuming over every box, and Eric pretending to be calm while wondering how everything fell apart so quickly. I didn't feel bad, not even a little. They made their choices. Now, so had I. The first day I walked into that house as part of the Havenbrook development team, I felt something shift. The space looked smaller without my things in it. The walls felt colder, and yet I felt taller, sharper, alive. Janine met me there. So this is the infamous house? I nodded. It is. We walked the perimeter. I pointed out the shortcuts Eric had taken, the corners they cut, the areas I warned them to handle properly, but that they chose to ignore. Unpermitted garage, plumbing outdated, no insulation in that back wall, I said, pointing without hesitation. Cracked tile in the laundry room. They used peel and stick flooring in the bathroom. Moisture's already undercutting it. Janine raised her eyebrows. You've got a good eye. I lived here, I said. Every flaw? I already fixed once. They let it fall apart again. By the end of the week, crews arrived. The first thing to go was the garage door, then the fence, then the front landscaping Megan had always bragged about but never maintained. I watched the demo from across the street, coffee in hand. Every nail removed was a reminder. I hadn't lost anything. I had escaped. A few days later, Lawrence invited me to a project meeting with the city. He introduced me as the community liaison, someone who understood the neighborhood, someone who could speak the language. I didn't correct him. He was right. The meeting was full of suits and fast talkers, but I held my own. When they asked about street access, I showed them the traffic flow. When they brought up local concerns, I listed the families most likely to resist and the ones who'd support the project if it meant better sidewalks and lighting. Afterward, Lawrence pulled me aside. You ever think of doing this full time? He asked. I blinked. What do you mean? You're sharp. Organized. You know what to say and when to say it. I could use someone like you permanently. It took me a second to answer. I'll think about it. But in truth, I didn't need time. I already knew. The next morning, I cleaned out the last of my storage unit. Old picture frames. A blanket I crocheted years ago. A chipped coffee mug Eric gave me for Mother's Day when he was 12. I wrapped it gently, not because I was sentimental, but because I knew exactly where it was going. I took it to the new apartment and placed it in the cabinet behind the mugs I used every day, out of sight but not discarded, like a lesson I'd already learned. That afternoon, I met Janine at another property. We walked through a 2-story brick colonial on Elm Street. Beautiful bones, terrible wiring. The owners were resisting the offer, but the house needed more work than it was worth. As we walked the upstairs hallway, Janine said, "You're different from when I first met you." I glanced over. What do you mean? You used to hold back. Now you don't. I smiled. I've stopped waiting for permission. She nodded. That's rare. It wasn't rare. It was necessary. People like Megan taught me that. The following weekend, I got a text from Eric. Can we meet? I stared at the screen for a long moment before replying. 1 hour. Briarwood Cafe. He arrived late. Same hesitant shuffle, same guarded smile. But his face looked older, tired. Not just from stress. Something deeper. He sat across from me, no coffee, no small talk. I made mistakes, he said. I didn't respond. I shouldn't have let things go the way they did. Still, I stayed silent. We didn't think you'd really leave. Or that you'd get involved in anything serious. I tilted my head. And by serious, you mean getting a job? Building a life? Not waiting for you to come around? He looked down. I guess. Then yes. I got serious. He rubbed his temples. Megan's struggling. We're not doing well. She thinks I ruined our future. I took a sip of my coffee. Did you? He looked up sharply. You're asking me that? You're the one who let her treat me like I was in the way. You're the one who stood there and watched. You made your bed, Eric. I just stopped sleeping in the hallway. I didn't mean to hurt you. But you did. The silence between us filled with everything unspoken. After a moment, he said, Is there any way back? I leaned forward. Back to what? He paused. I don't know. And I nodded slowly. Then no. There's no going back. I didn't leave in anger. I left because I was done pretending. Eric sat in that cafe long after I walked out. I didn't look back. That night, I stood by my apartment window, watching the streetlights flicker on. I thought about all the times I asked for respect and got silence. All the meals I cooked that were taken for granted. All the mornings I tiptoed through their lives, afraid to take up too much space. Now I took up space, and I didn't apologize for it. The next morning, Lawrence called again. I want to offer you a permanent position, he said. Senior Development Coordinator, title, salary, full benefits. I smiled. I'll take it. My first day as Senior Development Coordinator started like any other morning. I walked to the cafe 2 blocks from my apartment, a black coffee, and 5 minutes of stillness before stepping into the office. But something was different now. I walked taller, straighter. Not because someone was watching, but because I didn't have to shrink myself anymore. Lawrence introduced me to the rest of the full-time staff at Havenbrook as if I'd been there for years. They treated me with respect from the start. No one asked my age. No one implied I should slow down. They just wanted my insight, my judgment, and my results. And I gave them all 3. The first project I led was a cluster of 4 houses on Maple Row. Old homes, some beautiful, some neglected. I visited each one, spoke with the owners, reviewed permits, and outlined a plan that balanced development with dignity. I didn't bulldoze through people's lives. I offered options they hadn't considered. I made sure no one felt cornered. That was something I learned the hard way. What it felt like to be cornered in your own home, made to feel like you were no longer wanted. I never wanted to be that kind of decision maker. By the end of the month, 2 of the homeowners accepted our offers. One of them, a widow named Georgia, hugged me as I handed her the final paperwork. "I didn't think anyone would treat me like a person," she said, "but you did." I smiled. "Because you are. And this is still your story. You're just turning the page." Afterward, I sat in my office and let the moment settle. For years, I'd given everything to people who only saw my value when it benefited them. Now I was using those same instincts to build something better, not just for me, but for others like me. Around the same time, I started receiving messages again, from Eric, then Megan, then Eric's sister, who never called me unless it was someone's birthday. I didn't respond. They weren't calling because they missed me. They were calling because they missed the comfort I used to provide. The person who solved problems, held their lives together, never said no. I was done being that version of myself. One afternoon, I passed by a local bakery, small, brick-walled, with a faded "Help Wanted" sign in the window. It stopped me cold. That bakery reminded me of the one I worked in when Eric was a boy, back when I packed his lunch every morning and went straight to kneading dough until my hands ached. Back when every paycheck went to rent, food, and school supplies. Back when I believed if I just worked hard enough, I'd earn respect. I walked in. The owner, a woman named Lydia, looked up from behind the counter. "Can I help you?" "I used to run ovens in a place just like this," I said, smiling, "and I noticed your sign." She laughed. "You want to bake again?" "Not for pay," I said, "just for peace." She didn't understand at first, but we started talking. She let me come in twice a week. No clock, no stress. Just me, flour, and silence. I didn't tell anyone about the bakery. It was mine. A space where I could remember the parts of my life that mattered before everything got messy. Then, one morning, I found a letter slipped under my apartment door. It wasn't from Eric or Megan. It wasn't from Havenbrook. It was from a woman named Claire Jensen. I sat down on the couch to read. "Miss Campbell, I don't know if you remember me. My mother, Helen Jensen, lived on Lancaster Drive until she passed last fall. She spoke highly of you, how kind you were to her, how you always offered to drive her to the market when her arthritis flared. I never had the chance to thank you. I recently found a note she left, tucked in the back of her recipe book. It had your name and number, and next to it, in her handwriting, it said, 'Someone who still sees people.' I don't know what that meant to her, but I think I do now. Thank you. Claire." I folded the letter and placed it in the drawer beside my bed. I hadn't thought about Helen in a while, but I remembered her smile, her stories, and how she never asked for much, just company and maybe someone to help lift the heavy stuff. Sometimes those small kindnesses go further than the big sacrifices, and they're remembered longer too. A week later, Lawrence called me into his office. "I've got something bigger," he said. "We've been approached by the city about managing a larger redevelopment area. Multi-phase, multiple blocks, a full neighborhood transformation." He handed me a file. I scanned the pages. Budget estimates, zoning plans, aerial maps. And then I saw the name of the target neighborhood, Everspring Park. That's where Eric and Megan moved after selling 17 Hawthorne. Of course it was. I looked up. Lawrence leaned forward. "Think you can handle it?" "Yes," I said without hesitation, "even if it's complicated." I closed the file gently. It's not complicated. It's familiar, and I meant it. Everspring Park looked exactly like I remembered. Wide streets, modest homes, flower beds trying their best to thrive under neglected care. It was a neighborhood in limbo, still clinging to the past, but clearly outpaced by change. I stood at the edge of the main block, clipboard in hand, as the city planner explained the scope. "This stretch is our focus. Homes with aging infrastructure, no permit history, and high potential for redevelopment. Your job's the usual: outreach, inspection notes, compliance tracking." I nodded while flipping through the addresses. There it was. 41 Willow Lane, Eric and Megan's new address. Of course. Janine joined me later that day. We started the walkthrough with the corner lots, knocking on doors, listening to homeowners express concerns about noise, traffic, and losing their view. But 41 Willow was last. As we stepped up the walkway, Janine glanced sideways at me. "This the one?" "Yes," I said. "This is the one." The lawn was overgrown. The welcome mat was askew. The blinds were tilted unevenly, like someone had yanked them closed in a hurry. Eric answered the door. His eyes widened when he saw me. Ruth. Hello, Eric, I said. Megan appeared behind him, frowning. What's she doing here? Janine kept it professional. We're with Havenbrook. This property falls inside the new project zone. We're conducting initial reviews. Megan's voice sharpened. You're not coming inside. That's fine, I replied. We're just noting exterior conditions for now. But you will be receiving a city compliance letter within the next 2 weeks. It'll outline expectations and permit requirements for this phase. Eric looked tired, hollow even. He stepped outside, pulling the door closed behind him. Can we talk privately? I glanced at Janine. She nodded and walked toward the sidewalk. Eric lowered his voice. Please, whatever this is, don't let it take our house again. I raised an eyebrow. I didn't take your last house. You sold it. You know what I mean. No, I said. I really don't. He rubbed his face with both hands. We're trying, okay? Things haven't been easy since the baby came. Megan's overwhelmed. I'm working more hours. We're stretched. I said nothing. You're in control now, he said. We get it. You proved your point. I wasn't trying to prove a point, I said evenly. I was trying to survive after being pushed out of my own life. Eric looked away. I'm not here to punish you, I continued, but I'm not here to protect you either. Megan opened the door again. If she's staying, I'm calling someone. I looked at Eric. Good luck with the inspection, I said, then turned and walked away. That evening, my phone buzzed with a voicemail from Lawrence. City's already getting pushback from a few property owners. Nothing unexpected. But the mayor's office is pushing for quick results. I'm bumping you to project lead. You've got discretion to decide the order of priority. Choose wisely. I smiled. Understood. The next morning, I set up a call with the city engineer to discuss infrastructure upgrades. Drainage problems had plagued that area for years. If the utilities were getting dug up, the whole street would be affected, including 41 Willow. Over the next week, I sent out the preliminary notices. Property owners were given 2 options: cooperate and receive compensation, or delay and face inspection fees, permit reviews, and potential fines. I didn't send special instructions to Eric and Megan. They got the same letter everyone else did. The next day, Eric came to the Havenbrook office. He didn't ask for an appointment. He just showed up, holding a worn manila folder. Can I talk to you? He asked at the front desk. I met him in the conference room. He slid the folder toward me. All the paperwork from the garage we built last month. Permits, receipts, everything. I opened it. A few documents. Most of it incomplete. I thought it would help, he said. Maybe make things easier. I looked at him for a long moment. I'm not going to bend the rules for you, Eric. He nodded. I know. He looked older than he should have. Not in his face, but in the way he carried himself. The weight of choices he didn't fully understand until they landed on top of him. I thought what we did to you was temporary, he said. I thought you'd bounce back. I did bounce back, I said. Just not into your lives. He stared at the folder. Do you hate us? No, I said, but I don't trust you. His eyes filled, but he blinked fast. I'm sorry, Mom. I stood. I hope you meant that. He left without asking for anything else, and for the first time since I moved out of their house, I felt something loosen in my chest. Later that week, I visited a woman named Linda, another homeowner in the Everspring zone. She lived alone, kept her yard tidy, and had refused all offers. Not selling, she said the moment I stepped onto her porch. I smiled. That's all right. I'm here to talk, not push. We sat on folding chairs with chipped paint. She poured lemonade into mismatched glasses and told me stories of her late husband, her son in another state, the garden she still tended every morning. After an hour, she looked at me and said, You're different from the others. Because I know what it's like to be treated like a problem. She nodded. That's exactly it. I left her a copy of the plan, told her she had time, told her we'd work around her if needed. She thanked me. Not with words, but with a hand on mine before I left. Some houses get bulldozed. Others just need a new foundation. 6 months passed. Everspring Park changed faster than anyone expected. Foundations came up, fences came down, and old habits gave way to fresh pavement and clean lines. The streets buzzed with machinery by day and quieted by night under new streetlights that didn't flicker. I walked the neighborhood often, not as a visitor, as the one overseeing it all. And people began to notice. Neighbors waved. Contractors asked for my opinion before finalizing plans. The city council invited me to speak at a meeting about sustainable redevelopment. I stood in front of a packed room and told them about balance, how you can bring new life to a place without erasing its soul. Afterward, the mayor shook my hand. More neighborhoods need someone like you, he said. I smiled. They're everywhere. You just have to stop looking past them. Meanwhile, Eric and Megan stayed quiet. They filed all the paperwork, paid every fee, and passed inspection. Barely. The conversion work still needed correction, but the city agreed to a conditional permit. I didn't interfere. Let the process speak for itself. Then one day I came home to find a card slipped under my door. Plain envelope, no name on the front. Inside was a folded note. Ruth, we know we can't undo what we did, but we see it now. We see you now. If you ever want to meet the baby, her name is Grace. She's 3 months old. We hope you're well. Truly. Eric and Megan. I sat down slowly, not from shock, but from the calm that followed it. I didn't cry. I didn't crumble. I just let the words settle. Grace. I had no expectations. I didn't respond right away. I placed the card on the mantel of my apartment and looked at it every morning for a week. Then one Saturday, I walked to the bakery. Lydia greeted me with a smile and a fresh croissant. You look lighter today, she said. Maybe I am. You going somewhere after this? I nodded. Yes. Just one visit. It was quiet on Willow Lane. Their lawn was trimmed this time. The porch light had been replaced. I knocked twice. Megan answered. She looked surprised, then relieved. Come in, she said softly. Inside, the house looked lived in now. Less like a showpiece, more like a home. Toys in the corner, a folded blanket on the armrest, a photo on the wall of Eric holding a tiny girl, both smiling. She brought out the baby. Grace. Big eyes. Quiet hands. I didn't hold her. I just looked. And then Eric came in. He didn't say anything right away. Just stood there like he wasn't sure how to breathe in the moment. Thank you for coming, he finally said. I'm not staying long, I replied. He nodded. That's okay. Megan stood holding Grace. Would you like to hold her? I paused. And then I did. She fit perfectly in my arms, like nothing in my life had ever been out of place. Not because she would fix anything, but because I wasn't broken anymore. I handed her back gently. I wish you both peace, I said, and I meant it. I didn't make promises. I didn't ask for anything. I just left, coat buttoned, chin high, heart calm. Outside, the wind picked up. I tucked the scarf around my neck and walked home. That night, I opened my desk drawer and pulled out the letter from Claire Jensen. I reread it slowly. Then I added a note beneath it on fresh paper. Be the woman who still sees people, even when they stop seeing you. I folded both letters together and slid them into a new envelope. On the front, I wrote, For Grace. When she's ready. I sealed it and placed it in the same box where I kept the most important things, my late mother's ring, a photo of my first apartment, the recipe card Eric made me in 2nd grade that read, Best Mom Ever. I don't know what the future holds. Maybe I'll see them again. Maybe not. But this story, it ends with me.